Let me start off by thanking and congratulating my colleague, Senator Graham, for joining with me, for engaging me on this critical question. He knows my concern about Iran's march towards nuclear weapons, and together we thought it was an important statement to make. I appreciate his leadership on this issue and bringing us to a point that I think we will have a remarkably strong bipartisan vote today to send a very clear message. And the message, Mr. President, is that we seek full implementation of U.S. and international sanctions on Iran and urging the President to continue to strengthen enforcement of those sanctions. I cannot emphasize enough my strong concerns about Iran's nuclear program and the extraordinary threat it poses, yes, to Israel, but very importantly to the United States of America and to the entire international community. Iran's provocative actions threaten to not just undo regional stability, but it poses an existential threat to our ally Israel, and clearly a very real threat to U.S. national security. Iran continues to export terrorist activity directly and through proxies like Hezbollah. It continues to actively support the Assad regime in Syria with fighters, arms, and petroleum. It continues its unrelenting drive for nuclear weapons, placing it at the top of our list of national security concerns. In my view, it remains the paramount national security challenge we face, certainly in the Middle East, if not the world. Mr. President, we're at a crossroads in our Iran policy, and the question today is, what do we do next? The Obama administration, in concert with the Congress, has pursued a dual-track approach of diplomacy and sanctions. 2 weeks ago, members of the Foreign Relations Committee met with Lady Ashton, who has led the diplomatic track with the P5+1 along with Undersecretary Sherman. The talks have been central in demonstrating to the world that it is Iran and not the United States that is acting in bad faith, and it is Iran that, through its obstinance, has helped galvanize the international community to increase the pressure. But the talks have failed to achieve their central objective, which is getting Iran to make concessions on their nuclear program. It is clear to me that we cannot allow the Iranians to continue to drag their feet by talking while all the while they grow their nuclear program. Iran is proceeding at a fast pace. Today, as has been mentioned, the International Atomic Energy Agency, in its quarterly report, said that Iran has installed almost 700 advanced IR-2M centrifuges at Natanz, an increase of more than 500 centrifuges since February of this year. These are centrifuges that can more efficiently and more quickly enrich uranium. The IAEA's report also again expressed concern about the possible military dimensions of Iran's nuclear program. We cannot allow Iran to buy more time by talking, even as the centrifuges keep spinning. There is no doubt, and there has never been a doubt, certainly not in my mind, that a nuclear-armed Iran is not an option for the United States national security. And that's why I have been fully dedicated to doing everything we can to stop Iran from ever crossing that threshold. It's why I introduced, along with Senator Graham, this resolution that makes clear that a nuclear Iran is not an option and that the United States has Israel's back. And it's why I've come to this floor time after time as an author of some of the toughest sanctions that one country has ever levied against another, the sanctions against Iran. Working closely with my colleagues, Senator Kirk, and with the Obama administration, we have implemented these sanctions in a way that is truly strangling the Iranian economy. Iran's leaders must understand that unless they change their course, their situation will only get worse, and economic struggles and international isolation will grow. They must understand that at the end of the day, their pursuit of a nuclear weapons capability will make them less, not more secure. I also want to say something about Iran's unacceptable and deplorable approach to the State of Israel and its continued threats to the Jewish state. As the President has made clear time and again, America's commitment to Israel's security is unshakable. I share the President's commitment to Israel's security, and I know my colleagues do as well. Every time Iran makes outrageous threats, it only succeeds in further uniting the world against it and strengthening America's resolve. I strongly support the close and unprecedented security cooperation that the administration has pursued with Israel, and I know that this cooperation will only continue and deepen. And I am deeply committed to doing everything I can to ensure that Israel is able to defend itself. While this resolution makes absolutely clear that we are not authorizing the use of force, it does also make clear that we have Israel's back, and specifically that if Israel is compelled to take military action in self-defense against Iran's nuclear program, that we should stand with Israel, using all the tools of our national power to assist Israel in defense of its territory, its people, and its very existence. The bottom line is that Israel should always understand that the United States has its back, that we will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons capability, and if we are forced to, we will take whatever means necessary to prevent this outcome. As the President has reiterated on numerous occasions, all options are on the table. And that message, along with the solidarity of this chamber, I intend to take with me in my visit to Israel later this week. Mr. President, the simple fact is, we need to continue to apply pressure, and we must bring along the international community in our effort. This has been incredibly important, because while we have led, we have had a multiplier effect by the multilateral support of the European Union and others, so that our sanctions really can bite. And they have been biting. Iran's crude oil exports have been cut in half, from 2.5 million barrels per day in 2011 to approximately 1.25 million barrels per day now. Iran still had energy sector exports, however, of $83 billion in 2012, including $60 billion in oil and another $23 billion in natural gas, fuel oil, and condensates. The sanctions are working, but they aren't enough, and they aren't working fast enough. So in my view, we need to double down on 4 fronts. First, we need to encourage further reductions in energy sector purchases from Iran, including purchases of petroleum, fuel oil, and condensates, and prevent Iran from engaging in trade in precious metals to circumvent sanctions. Second, we need to ensure that we've prohibited trade with Iran with respect to all dual-use items that can be used in Iran's nuclear program. That means adding additional industry sectors to the trade prohibition list. Third, we need to ask the international community to ramp up the pressure and change Tehran's calculus. A nuclear Iran, after all, isn't only an American problem. And fourth, the time may also have come to look more seriously at all options, and that would include increasing military presence and pressure against Iran. I believe there still may be time for diplomacy to work, but increased military pressure could signal to the Supreme Leader that a nuclear program will undermine the security of his regime, not improve it. Fundamentally, the challenge remains a difficult one, and we're walking a fine line. But this resolution says to the Supreme Leader in Iran that we will not let up. We will continue to apply pressure, and that this continued pursuit of nuclear weapons is threatening the very existence of his regime. I urge my colleagues to support the Graham-Menendez resolution and full implementation of U.S. international sanctions on Iran. We are considering other options before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, as well as working with our colleagues on the Senate Banking Committee to make it very clear that we will exercise and exhaust all options that are peaceful diplomacy to try to achieve our ultimate goal. But this resolution makes it very clear to the world. Mr. President, we stand behind you as you stand behind Israel. And Israel, we continue to be your faithful ally. We recognize you as a clear democracy in a challenging part of the world, a major security partner of the United States, and the one country most likely to be voting with us in international organizations in common cause with common values. And that's what I think this vote will be about tonight. Mr. President, we reserve the balance of our time because I do believe we have another colleague who wishes to speak, and I will yield the floor.